My name is Danielle Blunt, and I am a pro dom based out of New York City, and I'm here today with Jessie Sage. Hi, I would
Hi.
love if you could introduce yourself and tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I am a phone sex operator and a writer and a content creator and a sex worker based in Pittsburgh.
Amazing. And we have something in common. Perhaps
Mhm.
viewers can tell by our busty floral attire that we but something that we both, or at least I definitely enjoy, is making mommy dom content and like the archetype of the mommy dom.
I
And
love that stuff.
it's so, and you were telling me something about a tweet that got retweeted right before we started recording. I'd love if you would share that.
Yeah, so it was so weird this morning. So the last article that I published, this is a weird coincidence that goes like full circle. The last article I published was in Hustler and it was just on kinks in general, but I started it with a story of like mommy doming and like talking to my client about mommy doming, and that came out last week. And then this morning, out of nowhere, Zero Spaces, which is like Stoya's magazine, retweeted an article that I wrote years ago, maybe 2 years ago, and I kind of forgot that this scene even existed. But the part, I mean, she's just like recirculating it. And the part that she quote retweeted is, and I'll quote, I say, baby, take your clothes off, pick your favorite belt, and present your bottom to mommy. She knows what you need. Then I begin to count. He whips himself for each time I tick off. So this was actually a scene from like the first person who was into like mommy doming with me, and he was very into spanking, but like belt whipping. And he called me every Friday after he got off of work.
Like a good boy.
Yeah, every single Friday for a long time. He like got mad at me one time and then stopped talking to me. But like before he got
Little tend to do that. We can get
he's
there later.
so I got in trouble, but before that, every Friday he would call, and he was really into belt whipping, and he wanted me to count off his like whippings, and I would listen to him while he did it, and he would go through the whole thing on his own. He whipped himself with his belt while I like counted off his how many times he was going to do it, and we did it every Friday for a long time. It was fun.
What a hot ritual.
I know. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very fun.
Yeah, I love the like consistency of it and also like the archetypal like mommy punishment as well like,
Mhm.
included,
Mhm.
and it is really interesting. I'm
Yeah.
curious, like, what is a mommy dom to you?
You know what's interesting about this is like I don't even really know how to like answer this, because it's not as if this is something that like I watched a lot of or like studied a lot of or anything. I just kind of I think I fell into doing mommy doming with some of my clients because maybe because I'm a mom and I'm in my 40s, like, I have big boobs and I don't know. I'm not exactly sure why, but I started to have a lot of clients who would fall into that and who would ask me if they could call me mommy or so for me, like what it's looked like for me has been a couple of different things. So some actually a lot now that I think about it. What it's been like between me and my clients has been them calling me mommy, me telling them what it is that they're going to do. Sometimes that's punishment, like what I just talked about. Sometimes it's like very gentle and they want to do like breastfeeding sort of things, which I also think is very fun. Or they want to just have me like nurture them in some ways. Some of them have looked like, and this is kind of like a mixing of like categories, I guess, but I've also like included mommy doming in some like cuckold sort of
Yes. That.
fantasies.
Wow. Whew, you just made me blush.
And that's been very fun. And the funniest thing about that is the last time that I did that, it was with the clients that so actually I guess I don't have a definition. What I can say is that like for me, what it's looked like is me taking on the role of like a very like sexualized mom who takes charge of the situation. And that's either in the realm of like humiliation or in the realm of nurturing or in the realm of punishment. Like it looks very different, like depending on what they're looking for. But and often those things are like combined as well. So like when we did it with like cuckolding, it was much more like mommy's going to get something that she needs from like this man and you're going to sit here and watch because you're just a little boy, you know, something like
So
that.
hot. I love
um,
that. I feel like the mommy dom gives you what you need, not what you want. I think
mhm.
feels like part of it. And there's like often elements for me of like that like super nurturing aspect and like encouragement and like
Yeah.
being very sweet while also potentially being like very sadistic and cruel
Yeah.
in only the way a mother knows.
Yeah.
Only a mother's love could do to
Yeah,
get
and
you
there's
that
something
deep.
to me, like I was actually like having a conversation with one of my clients about this the other day because, and I wrote this into my Hustler article, but he said to me, he was like, I think that I like this because we had just finished like a whole thing, and he said, I think I like this because I have mommy issues. And I was like, interesting. And then we talked about that for a little while. And then I was like, I think I like it because it's like, because in our culture, like moms are so desexualized that there's something really erotic to me about like taking back like your own sexuality, but like in the role of a mom. um,
Yeah.
which is like totally different than like MILF roles because that has very little to do with actual momming.
I'm so interested in like what is the like Venn diagram of MILF and Mommy Dom. I've been exploring this on Reddit trying to
Have
see.
you?
It's like smaller than I thought. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
the overlap is larger than I thought. But I
Oh,
think
interesting. Yeah.
what what were you saying just before that? It will come to me.
Because I think I tend to think of MILF as like almost like just a category of like, this is a person that's older than a certain age. That's not even necessary, or who appears to not be 18 years old. You know? So if you're doing porn and you look a little bit older, you get put into like the mom category or the MILF category. Or if you have big boobs, or if
Yeah, I've
you're.
been like MILFed since I was like 18.
Yeah, but the mommy dom stuff is much more like actually embracing the role of mom, of
And
mommy.
and that archetype. What were you saying about the Hustler article? The second thing you were saying.
Oh, just that my client was like talking to me about the fact that like he feels like he has mommy issues and that's why it's like so attractive to him and why he feels like he needs that.
And on like the other side of that, something that I've maybe mentioned before is like what attracts me to mommy dom archetypes is
Mhm.
that I feel like women are so often put into the role of caretaker without their consent. So it's like
Yeah.
both the
Mhm.
empowering nature of like moms being desexualized and taking like some of that back and being
Mhm.
like hypersexual in this like persona in this space, and also like I am going to like only nurture you and care for you in a consensual and negotiated way that is boundaried and
Yeah.
not just
Mhm.
expected as of me as a woman.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Because I think we are like, I think about this in my own life. I think that, you know, I'm the oldest of four kids. I feel like I've been like a mom since I was 10 years old in the sense that like I've had those roles like thrust upon me in ways that like aren't consensual. Like I didn't actually want to raise kids when I was 10, which isn't like throwing any shade on like my own mom. I'm just saying like that often happens when you're like an oldest child, you know, that suddenly you're like running a household and you're 11 years old. While your parents are like working or whatever. And I think especially as like a woman, like throughout my whole life, I feel like I've been kind of thrust into these roles of like taking care of everybody around me, like making sure that everybody is happy, even before like my own, even before like checking in with myself and thinking like, am I happy with the situation? Do like I want to do this? Um, but you're right that there's something about like taking on the role of nurturing, but like being very in charge of it that
Yeah,
feels
and
really good.
like I feel like what can be so cathartic about some scenes is that it has like a definite start and an end point,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
like being able to contain the role of caretaker and
Hmm.
step away from it is like a something that like mothers don't get to do,
Right. Hmm.
and also something that like a lot of women don't get to do who are just kind of like thrust into those roles.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think that there is something like both cathartic and like, oh, now I've taken care of you. Now you go do something else.
Yeah.
Go back to my life.
um yeah, so I'm interested in like how did someone find a mommy dom? Like I know people have like come to me since I
Mhm.
was, it's just like a nurturing, I've had like a more nurturing dominant role since I was like first started doming, and I feel like people started coming to me for that. But like how have people found you for Mommy Domme things, or does it find you? How does someone find a Mommy Domme?
Do you know what's interesting about that is that like I'm actually not a dom, and I think that like the I think in general, like I'm not a dom in other ways, and I think that a lot of people would like come to me for doming, especially because I work on Night Flirt and there's like a lot of subs on Night Flirt, and so I think that there was a lot of ways that I like wasn't comfortable with the role of dom, but when I found like mommy doming, it was a way that I could like tap into it and also really enjoy it. And I think maybe because like that sort of like nurturing thing comes more naturally to me.
It's so interesting. I was just talking to Aussie Rachel about the MILF rule and
Hmm.
working online and having more and more people approach her for kink. And I
Yeah.
think that there's something about the mommy dom that's less intimidating as like the ice cold latex wrap
Yeah.
mistress. Like you want the like hot mom next door to like show you how to like please a woman. It's
Yeah.
slightly less threatening than like the like ice queen who's gonna like tear you down in a second.
Yeah, yeah. I think that that's kind of what happened is that I was having a lot of people come to me for things that I wasn't necessarily comfortable with, that I had to try to figure out like how to negotiate, and that became easier. Like the longer you're in sex work, the easier it is for you to like negotiate your own boundaries, right? But the really interesting thing I think is that once I realized that like the mommy doming is a way that I could get into the way that I could get into cuckolding, the way I could get into like humiliation, because I'm not a big humiliation like person, but in that realm it's like not that hard for me to do
Yeah.
it. And so I think that like I had this very funny situation that I think kind of answers your question, which is that um I don't think that I often like put out that that's what I'm doing like in a very explicit like marketing way, but I think that I steer people in that direction. So an example of this is that like recently I have a client right now who's younger than me, who's, I mean, I'm in my 40s, he's 27 or something. So it's like a pretty significant like age gap. Um and he had this like fantasy of like, oh, I'm gonna like be the baller with like the hot older woman who I'm gonna walk around and take to like a fancy dinner and buy the most like expensive champagne or whatever. So we were like getting into that sort of thing for a while. And then one day he wanted me to like pretend to pick somebody up at the bar and take him home with me and make him watch. And I just like fell into like the mommy thing. And I thought that's what he was like hinting at, you know, because you know how some clients like will hint at things and they want you to like pick up what they're dropping, but they won't say it right outright. So like that's what I thought was going on. So I'm like, I'm just gonna make this easy for him, and I'm gonna tell him to call me mommy, and I'm gonna spin this way. And it was really hot, and the whole like both of us were super into it. And then at the end, when it was all over, he was like, I've never thought about that in my life, but it was really hot. And I was
Like mommy knows what you need.
like, what? Yeah. And I thought it was like
Shows you
him,
gently.
but it was me. I like created that.
But it sounds like a co-creation though, because I
Yeah.
feel like something that like you get better at over time as a sex worker and like constructing these fantasies is seeing what's behind it. And
Yeah.
like I've had so many experiences where like I know someone wants to tell me something and they just want me to read their mind.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's like little instances like that. Like to me, that doesn't sound like you projecting a mommy dom fantasy on someone else. It sounds like you being really fucking good at your job and being like, I think there's like one step further that like you're not quite, you haven't found language for
Yeah, right. And it
yet.
was funny because he was even trying to like construct it afterwards. And he was like, you know, it made a lot of sense because, like, why would I be there? But like, there's a reason why I can't actually be in the scene. And I was like, it's a fantasy. It doesn't have to make that much sense. But, you know, so he's trying to figure out, like, why is this a good framing for this fantasy? Oh, I got it. Like, this totally is coherent. And I'm like, it doesn't have to be coherent. It's a fantasy. But like, okay. You know, like, I
Mommy
could
dom
just
is here to tell you that your fantasies don't have to be based in reality.
I could just tell you to sit in the corner, and there doesn't have to be a reason. You just have to sit in the corner, you know? And but yeah, I think that there's a thing that's happening. And I think you're right that there's like a co-creation that happens in these spaces, right? In BDSM or in sex work or in any of these like um, you know, confined sort of moments where you create these scenes. And I think that there's been, and I had somebody else who did that recently too, who said like, he actually sent me a really nice message that said, after we also did like a Mommy Domme thing where he said, that was the first time I've ever done that. And then he said, I don't really understand my desires, but like somehow they seem okay with you, because I also pulled him down like a mommy thing. And he's like, that's the first time I've ever done that too. So I'm somehow like, I'm somehow like pushing this on people,
And you're
but they
doing an
like
interview with
it.
me, which will maybe manifest more of that for you. But I think it's like both, like people come to us for it, and also like I think both of us do have that like nurturing
Yeah.
component where it's like you want to like push someone in a way to like watch them grow and like understand their desires.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
I'm so many people's first mommy or mama, like
Mm-hmm.
so many. I'm currently trying to convince my girlfriend that she's little. It's not going great. She's gotten out ma, but won't probably. It's our edge play. But she does sleep with a baby blanket, but not a little.
Oh,
She told me I'm not a little,
baby
I'm an
steps.
Aries. I was like, okay.
And Aries, that's what she said.
Yeah.
What's the connection for
She's like,
her
it's the
between those
baby of
things?
the zodiac.
Oh.
Okay. I don't know enough. I only know about Leos in astrology.
I'm a
My
Pisces. What are you? You're a Leo?
I'm a Leo, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I truly only know about Leos, which I've heard is the most Leo thing one can say.
Yeah, because aren't Leos supposed to be kind of self-centered?
And big hair, yeah. I think it's really interesting too about Mommy Domme. I feel like people carry a lot of shame because it is this like it's connected to a taboo
Yeah.
or
Mm-hmm.
incest role play, which it's
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily even
Right.
needs to be related to. Like it's very like few percentage of like the mommy play and Mommy Dom stuff that I do is
Right.
at all related to an incest role play. And
Right.
for me, because that's not my experience,
Right.
it's the archetype of the nurturer.
Right. To me too. I don't even think of it as like incest play, like because I don't think of them as like my children.
Right.
I think of it more as like a role or archetype. Like what sort of like dynamics do you want to explore and like eroticize? And that doesn't mean like that it's your own family members. It means that it's like a thing that you need that maybe you didn't get, or maybe you did get and you miss, or maybe like, yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't even,
Opportunity to play, to be little, to like be held, like a
yeah.
position that you can occupy where vulnerability feels okay to receive. And I think
Right.
I've just noticed like a lot of shame and stigma also wrapped up in it
Yeah.
when people can't see that it doesn't have to like
Yeah.
I personally do both kinds of role
Hmm.
play and like to have more conversations if there's like
Yeah.
an incest component in the role play, but like it just like I'm not thinking about my
Family
bio
members.
family
Yeah.
in
Mm-mm.
any way when I'm doing mommy role play. It's very much about attunement for me. And I think maybe
Yeah.
it like leads into my next question of like how do you be a good mommy dom? And the first thing that comes to my mind, and I think about this every time I talk about mommy play, is I also study psychology, and
Hmm.
I went to this to Columbia's somatic psychotherapy conference and saw this video of mothers attuning with infants, and it was like
Mm.
super slowed down to like just their eye movement.
Oh,
And
interesting.
from the eye movement you could tell like whether the baby was insecurely attached, securely attached, or had like a disorganized attachment. And
Yeah.
I thought that it was just like this like attunement and reciprocity in this
Mm-hmm.
exchange was so interesting. So I feel
Hmm.
like part of being a good mommy dom is being able to attune with your little, with your baby, with your submissive, and being able to like make space for like generative conflict when
Yeah.
that attunement isn't there. But I'm curious, like, so
Yeah.
attunement is such a big part of it for me. So I'm wondering, like, for you, like,
Yeah, I mean, I think I hadn't really thought about it like that, but that's really interesting. And I think that is like kind of something that is maybe more like intuitive that maybe like I'm not consciously thinking about, but does seem to be part of it. I also really feel like security in my own body makes me a good mommy. Now I'm like, even in like remote sort of things, I feel that even in like over the phone or in camming or in phone sex or texting or whatever, any form, like being in tune with your own body and feeling comfortable, like using your body for comfort, and allowing for that, and like allowing somebody to feel like, um, giving them like permission to feel that within like my body feels to me like very central in it.
It sounds so nurturing too. Like a mother
Yeah.
like feeds and nurtures and
Yeah.
attunes. And I feel like there's so many ways from like in sexuality and
Mhm.
intimacy and just like platonic relationships
Right.
that we don't have access to that type of touch or care or love anymore.
Right. Hmm.
And especially since so many people have so many fucked up relationships with their biofams,
Yeah.
that I think it becomes like an opportunity to either recreate experiences that were good,
Right.
um, create experiences that weren't there for you when you
Yeah.
were younger, and like literally like carve new neural pathways of like, oh,
Yeah.
this is what like that type of care feels like,
Right.
or to like play with some like more intense things and like shadow work within.
Yeah. 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 And I feel like I don't know, I just feel like in my own work that like I very much like use my body in order for that, for those sorts of interactions and new ways of like new ways of interrelations. I don't know, I'm trying to think of I haven't thought this through as much, but like I think about it, and I think about one of the reasons that I really like mommy doming is that there are ways that like our own bodies, in the way that our bodies are like are particularly uh particularly good for that. Yeah. To have like a body that's like open to the other, to be able to like feed or nourish somebody, I think feels very good to me. It feels
Yeah.
I don't know, it just feels good
I
to me.
just finished the book, it's like Full Surrogacy Now or Surrogacy Now or something like
Okay.
that. Um, a, like a lot of it's about like abolishing the family and like
Hmm.
considering surrogacy workers laborers, and it has like a very
Hmm.
similar politic to like sex workers are workers. And
Yeah.
I think something that mommy play does as part, it's like totally fucks with the like nuclear family in a way that like creates
Yeah.
space for like queer love and healing
Right, right, right. Hmm.
in a really unique way.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you said this. I'm glad you also like brought up the like queering of these like boundaries, because I didn't at all mean to suggest like when I was saying that I think that you need to be like a cis woman in order to play that role or
Right.
anything. Like I don't think that. And I think that it's like not about like your particular body, but about like your relationship to it and like what you're allowing to like come out of it,
Yeah,
how you're allowing it to be used and how you're allowing yourself to like reimagine these like relationships. And I think that there is like a queering of that I think is really can be really powerful.
totally. Yeah. I one of my one of my doctors, I say this very fondly because she's a close friend of mine, helped, or like was one of the researchers behind helping one of the first trans women breastfeed her baby.
Oh, wow.
And so she knows a lot about like inducing lactation, and we were
Yeah.
talking about it. And like one thing that I wanted to do as someone who like doesn't have
Hmm.
biological children and like has never lactated before, I really wanted to start lactating for
Yeah.
lactating fetishists. And I think breastfeeding, like I've done like breastfeeding
Hmm.
scenes and breastfeeding fetishes, and I think it's so intimate and romantic
Yeah.
and sexy,
Hmm.
and like I fucking love it. And I wanted to, before the pandemic, I was planning for my birthday party to start lactating and breastfeed all of my guests.
Did it work? Well, the
I
pandemic.
did it, I totally foiled.
I love that. That's so cool.
Yeah, and so like that sort of also made me think of it's like it's not necessarily related to motherhood
Right.
or
Mm-hmm.
like bio motherhood at all. And I
Mm-hmm.
think too, and like with like queering the family, like anyone can take on the role
Mm-hmm.
of a mommy dom. And it's
Yeah.
interesting for me because I feel like I oscillate sometimes between mommy and daddy. And
Mm-hmm.
so sometimes it's like mommy and little boy, mommy and little girl, or
Mm-hmm.
dad, like DDGL type
Yeah.
fantasies. Recently I've like been heavily on a mommy kick.
Yeah. So tell me like how that feels different to you.
I think it feel like
Like
daddy feels a
how do you
little
feel, how do
sterner.
you relate differently when you're mommy than when you're daddy?
Yeah. Daddy feels a little bit sterner to me. It feels a
Mm-hmm.
little bit like more like I'm playing with my own gender too. So like
Mm-hmm.
times when I'm feeling more masculine, I like
Yeah.
often like take on like a more daddy role.
Yeah.
And for me when I'm feeling I guess it's not even more feminine, just like more like nurturing and like I want to
Yeah.
like feed you with my body and like
Yeah.
give you
Mm-hmm.
I feel like mommy wants to give you what you need and not what you want, and daddy wants to take what's his.
Yeah. 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 It's different. Yeah. It's a
Yeah,
different like energy, I think.
it's a very different energy. And I actually recently shot a scene for kink.com and it culminated in a mommy daddy little scene with Robin O'Hara and the Riley Ocean. And it was really fun to have like like I was hardcore leather mommy and Riley was hardcore leather daddy. And that
Mhm.
it just like felt like my perfect nuclear family.
Yeah.
Lots of
Yeah.
fisting. So my fisting dance apparently.
Yeah. How did you get into it?
I think I was always there. I think when I was younger, some of it was like more babysitter.
Hmm.
And like I've always also like I don't have kids, but I like have always babysat and like and have like very close relationships with my like younger family members and where in which
Yeah.
I do take on some of like a mothering role and like,
Yeah.
it's always felt really good and comfortable to
Hmm.
me. Um I I also think I was just like hyper aware of like the babysitting, like the dad's attention on me and like the media around the dad's attention on the babysitter.
Yeah.
And I was always like, it was like very fun and cathartic for me in role play situations to like turn it
Hmm.
around so the babysitter's in control
Yeah.
in a lot of ways. But I think,
When you were growing up, were you uncomfortable when like the dads would drive you home?
oh my God, yes, I actually have a stand-up bit about this, which I'll send to
Because
you.
it is this weird dynamic where
It
you're
is.
like a teenage girl stuck in a car with like an adult man, and there
And
is that
my
weird.
dad told me like all like horrible statistics and I was like sure that dad was going to do something terrible to me, but I actually he would they were like 8 houses down just like around the corner from me, and
Hmm.
he would insist on walking me home every time. And I feel so weird about this in retrospect because like he was just like trying to make sure I got home safe.
Yeah,
And
right.
like I was like, I will not let you anywhere near me. I know that like most molestations happen by someone you know. And so I would run home every time. I'd be like,
Oh my
thanks
gosh,
so much
yeah.
for the $7 an hour. I'm gonna go run. Bye. And I like would fucking book it home, and
Mhm.
he would just like kind of chase me to see if I got home, and like I was trying to like open the door, and like one time I tripped over a root and I was like, this is when it's gonna happen, I know it.
Oh
Like
my gosh,
but I'm like,
yeah.
what is that what is that like for that guy? Like does he know
I
what's
know,
going
because
through
he's
my
probably
mind?
just like a normal dude who,
Yeah.
yeah, I know. I think about that now, like as a parent who's hired babysitters. And for me, like if I was to tell PJ, I'm tired, can you go drive her home? Like in my mind, that makes sense, except that I used to be a teenage girl
Yeah.
and that freaked me out. I'd be
Yeah.
like, I'm in this car, I can't get out. Like, what if he like does something to me?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
very so like the evil babysitter role felt very cathartic for
Hmm.
me.
Hmm.
And I think just like being someone who's always like gathered people and nurtured, like I love hosting, I love
Yeah.
feeding people, that like feeding people with my body or like
Mhm.
care was a very natural
Yeah.
movement. And it like wasn't until more recently that I found language around Mommy Domme. It wasn't like what I
Yeah.
was like, which is like a very hardcore kink for me now. And like
Yeah.
I love the littles in my life. And like
Yeah.
I think
I'm starting to realize it's a kink for me too, because I
yeah,
think that like when I got in, like when I first started doing it, it felt like I was doing it as part of my job. And there's a lot of things that I do in my job that I'm like, I don't mind it, but it's not like my thing. You know, I'm just doing it as like a service. And I realized like, dude, I'm into this. Every time I do this, I like am legitimately like getting off my own desire and not because it's like a performance for someone else.
I feel very similarly. Like
Yeah.
Mommy Dom is like one thing like I really love. Like when someone looks at me and calls me mommy, I'm just like, it melts a little bit,
I know. It makes me
even
a
if
little
I
bit
don't
wet.
want to. um, I think like I have a few more questions about Mommy Dom, but I also want to make sure that we have time to chat about like what can go wrong in Mommy Dom
Okay.
situations. But I guess like what do you think it is that makes someone want a Mommy Dom or like to look for a Mommy Dom?
I've talked to some of my clients about this. What they've said, like one of them told me that he feels like he has mommy issues. And what he said, when I asked him what he meant by that, he said that he feels like he had like a strained relationship with his mom, so it was like somewhat like negative, but also he like caught himself like finding her very attractive and feeling like a lot of guilt around that. So like being able to like separate that out from like his own mother and like place those like feelings
Yeah.
somewhere else, I think was like really good for him. I mean that's just like one situation. I think for other people, like the idea of, but I mean, this is true in a lot of different forms of like submission. I feel like letting somebody else like take charge feels very good. I think that, but like I said, that could be a lot of different things. So why like mommy in particular? I feel like a lot of people who are into that like want to feel cared for, not just being told what to do, but like feeling like the person who's telling them what to do also very much is like rooting for their well-being. Like mommies care about their kids' well-being, and even if they're mean and ground them or put them in a corner or do whatever. like,
Growth.
what? Yeah.
Growth through grounding.
Yeah. Yeah. I say
Um,
it's like my real life children are grounded, but
it's effective sometimes.
yeah.
Thing. I feel like I've heard similar things. I feel like sometimes it's replacing something that wasn't there, working through something that was there and shouldn't have been,
Yeah.
or just like creating space to feel cared for, in which we're like
Right.
so deprived in
Yeah.
society. And what one thing I've been thinking of,
And I feel like a lot of times, let me just like interrupt with this too. I
sure.
feel like I think maybe because I'm my age demographic, but maybe just because this is who a lot of sex work clients are, a lot of married men with like kids. And I feel like, even if like they're for the most part like really happy with their relationship with their wife, like their wife gets like really caught up with like caretaking for the
Right.
kids and they can't like be as demanding like in that like
Care.
space. It takes their wives are already like trying to work and trying to take care of the kids and trying to do all this stuff. So I think too that there may
Your
be
wives don't want to mother their husband.
no. They're like busy trying to run the house,
Yeah.
which I totally understand. I don't think that that's weird at all. And so I think that there may be a way of like, can I get that sort of care that like isn't like a reasonable demand on my like life partner?
Right. I feel so I'm like all about outsourcing everything, like
Yeah.
everything you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I think that's a really interesting perspective too. And I feel like people are interested in like mommy dom, mommy role play for so many different reasons.
Yeah.
And like sometimes it's just because it's fucking hot.
Yeah.
Like we can talk
Yeah.
about it for hours and like theorize and guess and like talk about our experiences. And sometimes like it's just like,
Yeah.
that's like what's stuck in my head.
Sometimes I think it just like hits some sort of like nerve in your like in you that you're like, wow, it's not, now I'm charged for some reason.
I
Like
wonder
it's
how many
erotically
people are
charging.
gonna watch this and then develop a mommy fetish. I love installing both.
Maybe
Uh,
both.
I love instilling and installing mommy fetishes in people.
Apparently I've been busy doing that too, because
Yeah.
I've had many people who are like, I didn't know that was a thing and that was really hot. And I'm like, good, okay,
Yeah.
let's do this again.
Mommy knows best. Um, okay, a rapid fire question. What do you think about brats?
What do I think about brats? I kind of like people who are a little more compliant better.
I I sometimes say that playing with brats is a hard limit of
Wow, you're very much like me. I was like, I don't know. I want to say that that's great, but I'm kind of like, just do what I said.
yeah, I was like, why my response to brats, because like I think of this in like with like dog training. Like you are getting zero attention from me if you are misbehaving. Like if you're a brat, you're getting corner time. Like you like are going to be completely taken away
Yeah.
from contact with mommy.
Yeah.
So
I love it when
maybe
they're
brats
like,
just don't like me.
no, I love it when like they say things like, oh, whatever you want, mommy. Like, I want to please you. Like, I like the ones who want to please mommy. Like, if you want to please mommy,
Anything for mommy.
yeah, then I like it.
Mommy's desire is all that matters. Mommy's pleasure is all that matters. Whatever mommy wants, I want to give that to mommy. Thank you
Yeah.
for letting me be such a good little one for mommy.
Yes, that's what I want. I want good little boys who want to be good for mommy.
Yes. Ha, same. Okay, cool. I'm glad we're on this same page for that. I don't have as much time for brats or patience. Mommy's an impatient woman.
Mommy's a busy woman. Like, I don't have time to like break you all in. You have to just already want to serve me. This is how I think about it.
I feel the same. Do you see a connection between, or like, what is the connection that you see between mommy doms and ABDL, like adult baby diaper lovers?
I don't know. I've only had a couple of like clients who were interested in that. And honestly, like the ones that were less interested in like mommy doming and more just interested in honestly more just interested in like jerking off into their diaper.
Yeah. I've had some that are both, but I think it's like the diaper. I would say like ABDL feels more like a fetish and mommy dom feels more like an archetype or role, and some
Yeah.
overlap, but it's very much like it's like I'm jerking off into my diaper. How do I look in my
Yeah.
diaper? Like, do you like my diaper? Is my diaper fluffy? And it's like
Yeah.
much more, but
It's
it can
much more
also
about the diaper than the relationship. And like I like to do work that's more about the relationship. And um you know, I feel uncomfortable speaking on that only because, you know, I haven't had so much experience with that, but in my experience that I have had, it's felt very different. It's felt like much more about the diaper and like jerking off into a diaper than it has about like having a mommy.
I think of it as like foot fetish too. Like I think it can be both. Like I've seen people where it's just like hardcore foot fetish where like it could be any feet. And like
Yeah.
that's not my favorite. Like I love foot fetish sessions, but like I have a few foot fetishes who it's like it's my feet
Yeah.
that do it, and it's like my care with my feet. So like I've had some like ABDL session where it's like mommy is changing my diaper because mommy cares about me.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
feel like like the
That's like
diaper,
more relational though than it is about the diaper itself.
right. It has
So
to,
yeah.
and so like I feel like in both the foot fetish and the diaper scenario, like the fetish can lead or lend itself to the relationship. And I like
Yeah.
always need whatever the, like I always say, it's like whatever you're into, I'm going to use to like get into your head and get
Yeah.
you to serve me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like your fetish is just a path for like me to control.
Yeah, I think there's something interesting about that and about the fact that like in the kind of I don't know if this is the right way to say it, but in the mommy dom relationships that I've had that have been like successful where we've both really enjoyed it, it's been much more about like the relational aspect of it and like the caretaking and the kind of like surrender to mommy's will than about like the props or like
Yeah.
yeah.
So, okay.
I mean, I wouldn't mind that stuff. It's not as if I have like a problem with diapers or with path of like that's fine, but that's like not
But it's about
what
you. It's about you.
yeah.
You are mommy. Mommy gives the pacifier.
Yeah.
There's
Right.
really an extension to surrogate.
Yeah.
With mommy stuff, I think so much about that research too, with where the monkey chose to latch on to the wire monkey that the baby monkey chose to latch on to the wire monkey that
Oh
shocked
yeah.
it than the one that was soft and cozy
Mm-hmm.
if it was being fed. And
Mm-hmm.
it was just like I think about that a lot. I'm just like, maybe I can also take on the archetype of the cruel wire shocking surrogate monkey. But okay,
Yeah.
so I guess my like one of my final questions about this is like mommy dom relationships are so fulfilling to me and they sound like very similarly
Yeah.
fulfilling to you. But I also have found that when mommy dom relationships go wrong because it hits such a deep
Yeah.
relational pattern, or like some people, I feel like some people I've had experiences where people are like trying to work through their relational issues with their mother, especially if they're like anxiously attached or have like disorganized attachment,
Yeah.
like oscillate between the two, and especially like people with histories of trauma
Right.
from their families, that it takes, and I guess someone also once told me about like real kids, like it takes so little to traumatize a child. And I feel like when we're playing with little space, it's something I try and remember,
Yeah.
and also try and remind them that like I am not omnipresent mommy, like I am
Yeah.
not there for you in that capacity outside of a scene, and like I
Right.
do my best to make sure you're like in a good space when we stop playing, but like mommy has bad days,
Yeah.
mommy fucks up,
Yeah.
mommy makes mistakes, and I feel like
Yeah.
there's not a lot of space in that because mommy's on a pedestal. So I guess my question
Yeah.
is, where have you seen it go wrong? Like what are some things you've learned about mommy doming?
So one of the like very early lessons that I learned was, and this was like a sex work lesson in general, but like I learned when to not give people more than what they ask for because and that's something that I didn't necessarily anticipate, especially when I was like very new to this. And so for example, um that scenario that I read at the very beginning with the person who called me every Friday and whipped himself, he also was somebody who bought a lot of my porn and would watch it. And then often like but like just vanilla porn, just regular like porn stuff. And then when we would hang up our calls, sometimes he would be like, okay, well, tonight I'm going to rewatch your videos and stuff. So we were kind of operating on like different levels where we did this like belt whipping mommy thing. And then we also did like, he watched a lot of my content. So one day I had this idea that like, why don't I just make him content that's exactly what his like kink is? Then he'll be like super into that. But that was a terrible idea because I made my partner like bend over so I could whip him. Which is not necessarily his thing, but he's like so game. And I was like, you're gonna like get naked and you're gonna do this, and I'm gonna take your belt and I'm gonna whip you, and I'm gonna like record it, and my client's gonna love this because this is his thing. And he's like, okay, all right. So he like took a whipping for this like person. And then he was really mad because he was like, and now I understand why, but at the time I was like much newer and I didn't understand like the whole dynamic. And he was mad because he was like, but that was like our thing that we did.
Right.
And
That was supposed to be me.
how could you bring somebody else in? And I was like, you've watched me with this person in like a million different things. And he's like, no, but not in our thing, And so he got like very jealous and very mad. And that was the end. Like we were done. And he even got mad and was like, why don't you lower the price for this and make a bunch of money on it? Cause we're like done. So I feel kind of bad, like, in retrospect, but, like, I actually didn't know, like, at the time, like, I wouldn't have made the same decision now, but I, like, you make mistakes along the way, like, you're trying to
Right.
figure out, like, how do you give people what they want, and they're telling you, "I'm super into this thing," so I'm like, "Oh, well, it would be a fun surprise to give you exactly what you want," and he's
Right.
like,
For
"No,
you,
but that."
it's like, yeah.
Yeah, but he's like, "But that wasn't what he wanted," like, and I didn't understand that, and so, like, one of the things I've learned is, like, not to give people what they don't ask for because you don't know what you're stepping into. You don't understand, like, how they're conceptualizing, like, what your relationship is or anything, but that's true, I think, for a lot of different forms of sex work, but I think that, like, these relationships, for all the reasons that you said, are, like, are kind of tenuous. You have to be, like, very careful with them because you don't because I think they are often, like, kind of a deep, like, very deep sort of, like, feelings that they have, or they associating them with, like, very early memories or very deep feelings, and so it's easy to, like, step on that in a way that isn't good for them or good for
Isn't
you.
that like, I like to create, I think of like kind of it like of neuroplasticity and like the ability for BDSM to carve out like new
Yeah.
neural pathways for you
Mhm.
outside of like how things ended in the past. So like, cool, this mommy scene get like ends with you getting your needs met. And it's kind
Yeah.
of, it's like, it's not like a straight arrow, it's kind of like a spiral of like
Yeah.
slowly moving out of whatever patterns you're like really stuck in, is
Right.
a
Mhm.
lot of the work that I see. And sometimes during like a process of like that churning of like something comes up and like I miss something, and it's like it's two of my like most favorite people in my like 12-year career have been someone I've done like mommy or daddy role play as like a
Mhm.
significant part of the relationship. Um Also like have some like histories of like negative, like not getting their needs met as a
Mhm.
child,
Mhm.
and having like being adultified at
Mhm.
a young age.
Yeah.
um, and it is those two relationships where I think both times I got sick and wasn't able to maintain that level
Yeah.
of attunement,
Mhm.
and it spiraled. And
Yeah.
like I've had instances where just like, and like it's like gotten cruel, and like those have been the ones that have like truly escalated where
Yeah.
like it's not even like, it's not like abuse allegations or anything like that, but just
Yeah.
like completely disregarding all of my boundaries, like
Right. Mhm.
and just like spinning out of
Mhm.
control. Like I had one who was like, who like it felt like a vague threat, like this is my therapist like information in case I do anything, and
Wow.
I'm like
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I also make sure like that people are getting mental health care when they're doing
Yeah.
super intense stuff. I think is really important. Like
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
have that support, because like I'm not a therapist. I know
Right.
a lot about therapy, but like I don't have the skills to navigate
Yeah.
a therapeutic
And
relationship.
it's not, like, appropriate, like, within
No,
the
nor do I
framework that you
want
have
to.
with them. Yeah, and that's what I think, yeah, I've had this sort of experiences too where, like, instead of like, when you're in a sort of, like, transactional relationship with somebody and they decide it's not meeting their needs anymore, often they'll just, like, disappear, or they'll
Yeah,
tell you, like, "I'm in a new relationship and this doesn't make sense," or, "I don't have any money," or, like,
yeah,
just really normal things, and you're just like, "Okay, cool." With these relationships, these are also the ones that people have, like, wanted big, like, breakup scenes, or
yes. It's
you
like potential explosive.
yeah, that it becomes, like, much more intense for them where, yeah, and I
I feel
think
like it returns to that state of not getting what they wanted or needed
yeah.
as
Mhm.
as a child, and like it felt like in both of those instances it felt like a very, I don't mean this in like a judgmental way, but a very juvenile, like
Mhm.
irrational response to what
Yeah.
happened, where logic was no longer working because of
Right.
whatever was
Yeah,
triggered.
because with somebody else, you could just say, "I'm sick, I can't give you this attention right now. Like, I need to work on something else, I need to work on myself, or I need to get better
Right.
into a headspace where I can do this again." And, like, in your situations, like, that just not being acceptable. That's not being something that they can like take in and actually really understand.
Right, because mommies don't get sick. Mommies
Yeah.
are always there. They're ever present, and it's an issue
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
when they're not. And I think something that like I've learned through doing Mommy Domme play throughout the years is like I'm still working on it, because it is like, one thing is like, I really encourage everyone who's exploring intense DS things with me to have like a kink positive therapist, which we're going to
Yeah.
talk about on more on Friday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But like, to have that support, to have external support, so like I'm not the only one who knows about this for them. I
Yeah.
think community is like incredibly important, both to
Yeah.
like
Mm-hmm.
make sure that like they have a space to check their experiences, so that like
Yeah.
if something that I'm doing is wrong, like I'm not just like mommy's always right and that's taken as
Yeah.
at like face value in like a larger scheme outside of like a scene.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Like mommy as the totalitarian ruler. I would like to like have people see me and like have intense intimate relationships with me,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
be attached to community that like can help them communicate with me if like a need is missed or mismet.
Sure.
But I think
Mm-hmm.
like learning about generative conflict too has been really helpful for me. It's like, how
Mm-hmm.
can we use
Yeah.
whatever's coming up now? Because I'm sure it's not just coming up with me. And I
Yeah.
feel like those spaces of conflict where
Mm-hmm.
like someone's, I feel really emotional talking about it too,
Mm-hmm.
where like someone's need is not being met, is
Yeah.
either a point where you can like leave the relationship because it's the right thing to do,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
or you can leave the relationship because you're unable to ask for your needs or like get them met, or like have the conversation that would lead to like the path of like generative conflict of
Yeah.
like, my need wasn't met, I didn't feel seen, and
Mm-hmm.
like this is what I need moving forward.
Yeah.
I feel like being able to create space for some of those conversations to take
Yeah.
place has been like really healing for me as well, to like
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
not just have it end in an
Yeah,
instant.
I've also had situations that have like stuck with me um where things have turned quickly in ways that that made me very worried about their like well-being, because I'm thinking of one situation where one of my clients was like very into what we were doing, and then all of a sudden I asked a question like, what are you feeling, or how are you feeling about this? And then suddenly it pulled him out of
Yeah.
that, and then made him very like self-conscious about it, about the whole like interaction. And then he was like, I can't do this anymore, like I'm done. And then I realized like, and I had to like talk to him in a way that you're talking about, and saying, listen, I'm really sorry, like I did not mean to like step over your like boundary or pull you out of something that suddenly made it feel like you weren't safe in this like space anymore, because that I obviously want everyone who's playing with me in any capacity to feel like safe in that space. And but it happened like so quickly, that I do think that it's important what you're saying, because you do need to. And it's, he's somebody who's still like a regular of mine, and it's like we have a good relationship, but there was like a moment when that happened where he was like suddenly very self-conscious about his own like desires, and especially like his desire for like humiliation, and suddenly was like,
Yeah.
now I feel very
Like you're hit with that self-reflection that you're not prepared for.
yeah. And then he's like, wait, now I'm embarrassed that I want to be so humiliated, so there must be something wrong with me, so I have to get out of here, and that's like not something that I ever want. So
I think it's like, I too hope that people like feel safe as they can when playing with me, but I really like hate the idea of safe spaces, because you just
mm,
don't know what's going to trigger someone like
no, yeah,
in that scenario. And I
yeah,
feel
because it
like,
was all I said is like, how are you feeling, like,
right, so and like
and
that's like seemingly like healthy thing to do as part of a check-in. And I feel like
yeah.
when you like in these intersubjective, like two people having
Mhm.
totally different experiences of something, like I cannot guarantee someone's safety.
Right.
I can like guarantee that I will do my best to work through conflict in as healthy a way as I am able to, and have like the skills to, and like
Yeah.
constantly add to my tool belt. But like intimacy is not safe.
Right.
Like
Yeah. I
in
think that's a really good point. Yeah.
like intimacy is dangerous because there's
Yeah.
the potential of it being like unrequited or like
Yeah.
of having a rupture. And I think just like the more I like play and the more I learn and the more I fuck
Mhm.
up,
Yeah.
I think about like how important it is to like I try and do this and I don't do it enough as I should because I feel like you never know who's going to become a regular.
Mhm.
But like, what do we do when conflict comes up before it
Yeah.
picks up or before it's gotten there? And like really just like giving people positive reinforcements anytime they like bring
Yeah.
something up has been like the two tools that like I've been trying to
Mhm.
work better with. Just like
Mhm.
it's not like what do we do if something goes wrong? Like something is going to go wrong.
Yeah.
Right? It might be really little. But like I've had people be triggered from like a way that I looked at them or like a
Yeah.
subtle touch and like no amount of negotiation would have like figured that out. And especially
Right.
like in a little headspace, I feel
Yeah.
like it can be feel very dangerous very quickly
Mhm.
in like a way that's really hard to navigate out of.
Yeah. Because those are like visceral like feelings that you can't just say like, oh, I didn't mean to make you feel that way. It's not like somebody can just pull themselves out of that like
Right, it's like very
headspace.
real in the moment, like that is
Yeah.
their reality,
Right.
and like
Yeah.
that is the reality. It's like that's what
Right.
it's gone to.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this work is very intense. It's probably kind of why I like it. I mean, not because I want people to be triggered. Like that's not what I'm trying to say, but the fact that it's like so can be like so psychologically and so like emotionally fulfilling and like
Yeah,
and change people's like lives and their relationships to themselves and to their own like history and their own sexuality, I think is really powerful.
totally. Yeah, I completely agree. And maybe that's, I would say that sounds like a beautiful place to end to me, unless
Yeah.
you have anything else you
No.
want to say. I guess
Yeah.
I'll ask you, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at sapiotextual, and you can find me and all of my links on my website at jessiesage.com. And also, I run Peep Show Media, which is at peepshowmedia.com, and the Peep Show podcast and all of the other contents on there.
Thank you so much. I love it. And you can find me at Mistress Blunt on Twitter and Instagram and onlyfans.com/Mistress Blunt or stars.avn/Mistress Blunt. And on I Want Clips, I have a few Mommy Domme clips with some, I don't know if you want to do like a little,
Yeah.
we can
Let's
like
see.
share some of the mommy goods.
Ah.
Mommy for mommy is my
Yeah.
like hands down. Amazing. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
it was really fun to talk to you about all of this.